Call meeting to order. First order of business is the adoption of the agenda. Are there any amendments to the agenda?
Well, the letters that you have are going to be in with 5.7 letters, plural to the province.
Okay, they're on cream color paper. They will be
Cream and white.
Are there white ones there too? Okay.
No, some.
Oh, some in white.
That's just your written report, right?
Pardon me?
That's just your written report?
No, these are going to be under administration letters to the province. 5B7. Okay, it's letters plural to the province.
Letters. That's page 77, goes in these letters, okay? Are there any other amendments to the agenda?
I'd like to add the FCM in Niagara as an item.
I believe it's already on.
Is it on here? Yes. So you can
Yeah, it's in 7.
7.2.
Alright. And are there any other amendments? I'd like to add the Random Lengths Camel Market Report from Total. They're asking for a meeting. We'll place that under 7.5. 7.5. Total meeting. That'll be page 140 approximately. And the Northern Alberta Development Council. This is a email that should be attached to the page 140. It's the covering email. Regarding the actual invitation. Are there any other items? Can I have, what about your delegation?
No,
do that when it comes up as a public, right?
Well, we want to move public up.
What's that?
We want to move public up.
No, public is up. Or
Before
yeah.
scheduled.
You'd have to make an amendment now.
Yeah.
So make the amendment now, please.
So I'd like to make an amendment to have Peter Edwards from.
No, you'd like to move 2B to above 2A. Because he's not, it's just public. And
It's
then
just a public delegation.
when you
So
call
public
scheduled.
delegation to be or not to be above 2A, please. Just make 2A to be. Which
we're good. She
so
understands.
I can have so much fun with that.
Indeed you could. All right, could I have then a motion to adopt the agenda as amended? Councilor Danaka, all in favor? Carried. So, we will welcome our public delegation, unscheduled, and would you please step forward, and what is his name?
Mr. Peter Evans.
Peter Edwards.
Sir Peter Andrews.
Andrews.
Peter
Oh.
Andrews.
Starting off wrong foot already.
This
Please don't hold him against the rest.
Hi, Peter.
Peter Andrews, and what is your title and organization?
I'm with West Fraser. I'm the Alberta Regional Manager. For West
We're the
Fraser.
regional manager, and we will introduce ourselves because we know who you are. Councilor Rose?
Give you yours.
Yes.
Like long we've met and talked on the phone.
I'm Mayor Linda Cox, and we've never met.
Kevin Tamato, CEO, Town of High Prairie.
I'm Brian Panasic.
All right.
Nice to meet you.
He's cancer.
Just in case,
He just slipped into the public attending appointment or counselor. Do you have a business card that I can?
I don't yet. Just.
Can I give you mine?
Certainly.
Thank you. Just if you could send me contact.
I can.
Your contact.
Thanks.
And Trevor Carey.
Sure. Pleasure to meet you. Yes. Pleasure to meet you all. Thank you for the opportunity.
Madam Mayor, can we have a motion to extend time
I'm not sure how much people know about West Fraser, but we'll
A
give
bit.
you an overview and our business in total and in Alberta, and then kind of narrow down to what's happening here in Quebec.
Okay. Hopefully this works.
Crystal,
Mm.
will this work automatically or what?
Yeah, it should just,
If it's accepted,
is it in, did you connect the blue to the blue?
Oh, your computer wasn't on?
I'm just waiting.
Oh, that's why.
So let's see, it should.
There.
Oh, good. Lovely technology.
That's good stuff.
A theater experience.
The acoustics are great, so.
I didn't have any sound, you just what you hear from me.
Yeah.
So while it's doing the startup thing, I'm gonna be centered in Whitecourt, that's where my home is. So that kind of keeps, it's central for my role, it's not that far away from here, so. But I also look after mills in Sundre and Whitecourt, Hinton and Anson as well, so there's.
Who are you looking at?
Pardon?
Your holidays?
That was Malta.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, it's a family vacation from a year and a bit ago.
I thought it was Spain actually, but Malta will do.
There's a Spanish influence there.
Oh, look at this. We're gonna town council. Many versions.
Well, I had, I'm sure it wasn't too good. Reasonably clear, I think. So just an overview of West Fraser. We are an integrated forest products company, primarily focused on wood products. We've 30 sawmills, 6 panel mills, and 5 pulp and paper mills. So that makes us North America's largest lumber producer, the largest plywood producer in Canada, and the 3rd largest pulp producer in Canada. So, we've kind of quietly grown to be a fairly good-sized company over the years. It was founded in 1955. 3 brothers, Bill and Sam Ketchum and Pete Ketchum, went to Quesnel and bought a planer mill, and kind of eked out a business and then bought a sawmill, and over the years, eventually expanding into Alberta in 1989, and to the point where we a large $3.5 billion sales last year. So we operate, we have 3 regions that we are focused on in British Columbia, Alberta, and the US South. And over 40 total. I think we're probably close to almost 8,000 employees now in North America.
And you have nothing in Whitecourt except for that's where you live?
We do in Whitecourt. We have our Blue Ridge Sawmill, which is just east of Whitecourt at Blue Ridge Lumber. And we are 50% owners in Alberta Newsprint Corporation. So again, good segue into where are we located in Alberta? You can see we just added High Prairie Forest Products to the Lesser Slave Lake region. Slave Lake pulp. And that veneer gets shipped to Edmonton, where we make plywood at Alberta Plywood Division. In the Whitecourt area, actually I forgot, we have Ranger Board MDF, which is medium density fiber board, which is right across the street from the sawmill. So there's a few operations in Whitecourt. Yellowhead County, there's Hinton Wood Products, Hinton Pulp Mill, and Edson Forest Products. Edson Forest Products was formerly Sundance Forest Industries, which we bought in 2012. And it's been shut down for 3 or 4 months because we've been rebuilding the mill, and it's going to start up this month. Significant investment there in a brand new sawmill, so it's going to be very exciting. And then down south, Sundry Forest Products, there's a sawmill and a post and rail and a treating business there. And we have a laminated veneer lumber mill in Rocky Mountain House. What are we about? I mean, our operating philosophy, low cost producer. The brothers, when they started the business, it was very, very competitive. They're in a commodity business, and if you're not the lowest cost producer, when the market prices change, you quickly run out of cash and you go out of business. So it's kind of our culture to be very frugal and cost conscious, but not that's different than being cheap, but just being we reinvest the profits. We're very aggressive at reinvesting in new technology and making sure that our mills are very, very competitive, because we don't know when the next market downturn will be, and we don't want to lose money when the market goes down again. So, we maintain a conservative balance sheet. What does that mean is we have very little debt and lots of cash in the bank, so we can be fleet of foot to take opportunities, whether it's acquisitions or reinvestment. And sustainable forest management is fundamental to our business. We are always looking out. This is a long-term business, 30, 40, 50 years or more, and we rely on the forests and the forest-dependent communities, so we have to manage sustainably. And we develop our people and promote from within. So you look at our management executive, they are people that started shoveling sawdust at a sawmill and somewhere and progressed through the ranks, or a welder or an accountant, or I'm a forester. So there's a good mix of people across around our management teams. Our business outlook, what's our strategy, is again operational excellence. And we have a mill, and we want to make sure that it's the very best in its compared to our competition. So we drive for excellence with technology, with our people, training and development, with product development. We pride ourselves on diversification. We diversify products. We're in a lot of different segments of the wood products business, and geopolitically, as I pointed out, we're an integrated company. What does that mean? We make lumber. The sawdust goes to MDF, or we sell it to another company, makes pellets, or we take the chips to our pulp mills. We use every part of the tree that we bring in. There's nothing that goes to waste. We are looking at renewable energy generation. We have a power division, and we're building wood-fired energy generating mills around the company to be in linkage with our sawmills. So it's just another little business to keep ourselves going. Pride ourselves in Alberta. We have very modern, efficient mills. They ran at 99% during the downturn, where a lot of our competitors shut mills down and took shifts off. Again, because we felt we had competitive low-cost mills we could keep running during the downturn, and we did. So that's important when you're looking at holding on to your people, which are your biggest asset. You don't want to lose your good people because you're shut down. So. Just a snapshot of our lumber capacity by British Columbia to U.S. South and Alberta. So we're trying to diversify regionally that way too. So we love doing business in Alberta. We're continuing to grow here wherever opportunity comes, and we're we're just very happy that the Buchanan family chose to come talk to us when they wanted to sell, because they obviously thought that we would carry on with the tradition and the legacy they had with this community and this mills. So a little bit about more about our philosophy. You know, we talk about building communities, but forestry jobs are stay-at-home community building jobs, right? I mean, these are people who work in our mills, work there. They can be home at you know, on a regular basis. They're not living in a camp and away from home, so they're your coaches of your hockey teams and involved with the community more. These are stay-at-home jobs. There's over 2,300 jobs that we have here in Alberta in our mills. And, there's going to be lots of opportunity because we have, like most places, have an aging workforce, and we're really trying to develop and find young workers that want to take on and develop more skills. We're always hiring. You know, I mentioned this, our lumber mills convert high-value timber to construction-grade wood products, lumber, plywood, engineered wood. We also are integrated. We use sawdust, shavings, wood chips, and bark. And we have a research group that's looking at other future products around biofuels, biochemicals, and biomaterials. So it's kind of some exciting things will be coming down the pipeline here in the next few years out of that group. So as I mentioned, the Buchanan Lumber legacy is now High Prairie Forest Products, and we are more than interested. We're excited about building on the mill's success and investing in the operations here and growing the business in the long term. The deal closed last week. There's about 180 employees, and all of whom have been offered employment under, you know, with us under the same terms and conditions they enjoyed with Buchanan. Part of what I've been doing is making sure everybody knows that, getting around meeting and talking to people, and now our contractors are getting the same message out. So the mill currently produces about 110 million board feet a year, and just at a quick view, I think we can grow the capacity here almost double of what it is, 175 to 200 million. But we have to make some investments, of course. We're assuming all the forest management responsibilities that Buchanan had for the joint FMA with Tolco and the various timber quota licenses. All that just kind of rolled over into our ownership.
Taking over the gravel business as well?
Yes. So the gravel business and the trucking business, which Juan is very familiar with, but you know, that's all now part of our business here, and just trying to understand how the Buchanans put it all together and how it works, and build a plan to go forward. So I'll talk a little bit about working with the community, because I often get asked, what do we need? What does the community need from us? So to support the growth of our company here, and we need obviously support infrastructure, roads and road maintenance, utilities, which is water and sewer, fire protection, medical facilities, and quite importantly, we need attractive, family-friendly communities, because we're going to be bringing professionals in here in different roles, and they're going to be bringing their families here wanting to move, so it's important that the community is attractive. And you guys have a beautiful community here. I've just enjoying the last couple weeks here. There's a couple of arenas and an aquatic center.
So you're moving.
I'm not moving, but I've already got one of our woods professional is coming. He's moving here with his family, and he's accepted a job, so he's looking to move to High Prairie, and there'll be others that come too. So these kind of things are important. And the other thing that's important, the other reason that when we think about something like water, for example, and I don't fully understand. I know that we are on town water. There's a number of hydrants, and we're not on town sewer or anything like that. Doesn't look like we have enough water to give us the fire protection that we need. But, across the whole site. But, you know, in the wake of the mill explosions in British Columbia, you know, our insurance companies are all of a sudden all over us, right, about managing risk around fires and whatnot. So there were insurers that just left the industry. They're not insuring anybody that's related to forest products anymore. So it really caused some hardship for us as a company. And of course, not only do rates go up, but the diligence that we have to do and the planning that we have to do around making sure that we have something like water, very, very important for us to keep insurance so that we can keep our businesses going. So, more important than ever, you know, water and fire protection is very, very, it's critical. So that, you know, something that we look forward to talking further about. You know, there's plans to expand or upgrade. We need to talk about that with you folks. A little bit about community investment. You know, we have a pretty tall order to follow from the Buchanan family here. Their fingerprints are all over the community here. I see it all over the place. But we do have a very, we do take our responsibilities quite seriously when we operate in the community. We donate a lot to the communities. We support scholarships for the youth moving on to post-secondary education. And we do a lot of donations focused on community and youth and sport and whatnot.
Are they only forestry related scholarships?
That's the preference that we have. But if there's nobody going on into a forestry trade, we'll still offer support for somebody going into medicine business.
Is there an annual amount?
There's a guideline, yeah. And so what it means if the manager's got 5 really strong candidates one year, we might give 5 scholarships. If we want to next year, we get 3, 8 the next year. So it's flexible. So we do you know, really try to get involved in the communities where we operate because it's important. And just you might have met Ted briefly. Ted Serafin, the president and CEO. He kind of sums it up. Everybody in the company is important. And that says a lot about our spirit. It's not a management strategy or technique. It's what we believe. And, whether we've got the most junior student that's cleaning up sawdust for us on the weekend, or you know, the mill manager, everybody's important. It makes our company stronger. And just kind of toot our horn a little bit, but we were named one of Canada's 10 best companies to work for recently, and one of Canada's top 100 employers. These kind of don't get onto those lists by accident. It usually means you're treating people right, and paying them competitively, and you offer employee development.
Are you unionized or non-unionized?
Good question, Brian. We have both. The company has grown through acquisitions, so if we bought a unionized operation, they stayed unionized and they're part of our company. And if we buy a non-unionized operation, you're staying non-unionized. So we have about probably 60% non-union, 40% union if you look at all of our facilities. That was the end of my show. Yeah. Any questions? I'd be happy to answer them.
Well, first I'd like to take the opportunity to thank you for coming and for giving us the presentation. I think it was a surprise to a lot of people, but we were happy to hear that it was West Fraser. It's a well-known company, it's got a good history, and it has a good reputation throughout the forest industry. So, welcome to High Prairie.
Thank you.
And in saying that, I believe Councillor Emter had a question?
No,
I did have one, and that was, we just had a meeting, what was it, Monday night? And it was we were meeting with High Prairie School Division, and they were looking for placements for RAP students, registered apprenticeship program for their students, and I'm just throwing it out there as we would really appreciate if you're able to support and in placing some apprenticeships. within the
Or even work
community.
experience,
Well, it's, yeah,
because that was
Is that-
another program.
and dual credit
Is the
work
dual credit?
experience, and I'll
Yeah.
even throw on my, college hat, I work at Northern Lakes College, and we're often looking for placements too, but, just,
We are very supportive of that. Quite a few of our communities, we have that arrangement with the local school district, and we have brought, high school students in under an agreement, and, you know, they're apprentice welding or an electrician, something, so.
oh,
We
perfect.
do that. You know, it's something we've grown tremendously in the last, 5 years. I think we have now in Canada over 600 apprentices, in the system that we're training and developing, so it's a very serious thing, and it's great. What I like about apprentices is they come from the community, and, they're more apt to stick around and be long-term employees in the community, and that's a great benefit. It's a longer-term, investment, right? Makes sense.
Is West Fraser a member of the Alberta Forest Products Association?
Yes, we are.
Question? Councillor Long?
You plan on taking it from 110 million board feet to 175, 200?
Yes.
That's a lot of lumber to be chasing.
Yes.
Now, some of the peeler logs will probably go to slate, I'm assuming. Is that right?
That will be what ends up happening, is there synergies with the fiber baskets, is what I like to look at. And that, so we will take some peeler quality logs and move them to Slave Lake, and, that'll help that operation run better. Slave Lake has too many saw logs, and we'll be able to move those saw logs, here instead of taking them down to Whitecourt.
And that'll come from stud, but you have a small mill in Slate, right? A stud mill?
We have a stud mill at Slave Lake, and, that, produces 25 to 30 million feet a year. And we anticipate, phasing that out, and taking those logs, bringing them entirely here. Because this operation is, Buchanan has a lot of success producing studs, there's a lot of expertise here, and, it makes sense to grow it out here. Where they do it better.
That stud mill doesn't run full-time.
It doesn't run full-time either, so it's kind of, you never really get good at it, you run it part-time, and then you don't. So it will make sense to phase that one out and expand this one here in High Prairie.
For us,
From the expansion, how many more employees do you expect to have when you come along?
Probably too early to say right now, cause we're just evaluating how many employees they have here today, and, what do they do. But I do know that's an issue that, you know, it's a challenge for the management, because they're not offering full-time hours to a lot of them, and so it's hard to keep people. So it may mean, for sure, there'd be more likely getting full-time hours, and growth in the, total employment as well, just total members.
The expansion itself, is that an idea or a plan? Do you have like a 3 to 5 year plan on doing this? Or is it
Yes.
something you're just thinking of pursuing?
No, it's a plan. And we've already taken steps to put it in motion.
How many shifts are they running right now?
The, planer runs one shift, Monday to Saturday, and the sawmill runs two shifts, Monday to Friday and on Monday to Thursday. So it's not quite 40 hours a week.
I was just gonna wonder about the wood supply, is there enough in the quotas and the FMA to meet your expectations, or are you gonna need to get more wood?
We think there's enough. You know, today we move logs, around, we're bringing, peeler logs from Hinton to Slave Lake. So, that's a high cost, but we're doing that, you know, to move our logs around where there's surpluses in different areas. So we'll continue to do that.
So it's not necessarily from the existing FMA that you're gonna get the wood supply, that
it will cover the most of it, but we will need to move logs from Slave Lake to here to make up the difference to increase the productions.
And the deciduous trees will not go to the, your Slave Lake, like Slave Lake pulp and whatnot.
Yeah, no, we have to be sensitive, we have some agreements that we need to honor with Tolco and with other licensees in Grand Prairie, but we'll work, we'll continue with those, and over time, we will probably move those logs to Slave Lake pulp mill. Secure that a little bit more. So.
Because it is a worry, and it will be a worry of this community. They're very, very sensitive to the FMA that is surrounding here and where this lumber is going. Well, we heard that already on the street.
I have, yes.
And I think it's only something that the town council here is responsible to ensure that their feelings are put forth to you. That we've heard this from Tolco and now, and we tell you the same as what we told Tolco. We are great partners as long as we live up to your portion of the bargain.
I hear you. Yeah, we've done the talking, now we just have to let our actions, follow through on that.
Okay.
We'll earn your respect like we've done in other communities. Since we've come into Alberta, we've completely rebuilt Blue Ridge Sawmill, Hinton Sawmill has been rebuilt, Edson, and
Well, as I said at the beginning, West Fraser has a good reputation.
Yes.
I have heard that constantly throughout the forest industry, and they speak very highly of you. That that you weren't an outfit that just comes in and wants the FMA. I'm certainly sure Buchanan's had value in their FMA, much of the value, and it was recognized. But I'm also certain that the Buchanan family has tried to do the best for our community.
they did not, this is what Greg told me, they did not shop it around, they came and talked to us because they knew that we would carry on in the community and we would not move the logs to another community. So.
Well, we've had one major disaster already with Tolco, you know that, closing down. And Tolco has come to us and comes to us still on a regular basis. In fact, today, they have just sent us another email with the report on the oriented strand board, the pricing, and the fact that the pricing of OSB is still not recovered. So.
It's still very good. Yes.
So until it makes economic sense, we pretty well are standing by Tolco's decision, but. Okay, any other questions regarding? Well, then I would like to thank you very much for attending, and I'm sure we will meet you again.
Yes, I will be here coming through and talking to Ron and other employees. Every week I'll be coming through.
Great. So if we have any questions, if you could, can you drop some cards off perhaps at the town office?
I'm just getting some new ones made, so.
Okay. Are they
Now,
on
Quentin,
that?
I can send you my
Yeah.
contact information.
I can forward that.
And you can forward that?
That would be really good. And then if people have questions and they address it to any of the counselors, then
I'll certainly be happy to answer any questions anybody has at any time.
all right. So thank you, Peter, and I appreciate you coming.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And yes.
Now we'll call them Andrews.
Thank you.
Good luck in the future. And good luck also. You have a new employee.
I do. I have a new employer. It's been a stressful few weeks, or a stressful week.
Must be, you think it's 2 weeks?
Well, it feels like 2 weeks. It's been a
That's
stressful.
because she worked all weekend doing stuff.
But it's got,
You came together well.
I feel very positive moving forward. I think it'll be very good for everybody and the community.
And it's so wonderful to have our
Inside.
Ah.
Thanks very much again.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Now, what's the way, this way is it?
That was
Okay.
good.
Thanks.
All right. We will now move to, yes, Councillor Ector.
We didn't actually call for public, we
We'll
just
call
announced
again
him
for
and
public?
pulled him up.
Okay.
So.
Are there any other public delegations here? Are there any other public delegations? Yes, sir. No public, yes?
Yes.
Come forward, sir.
Right?
Yeah, right there will do. Can you state your name?
Brian Odegaard.
Pardon?
Brian Odegaard.
Brian
Odegaard.
Odegaard.
My grandfather was a gunner.
Yes.
Some of you may know him very well. He had a dog sled team here for years and races here for years. And now that he's gone, we're trying to put another one together, maybe here or somewhere else with some other members. But I understand there's a dog park maybe coming here or going to be here.
Possibly, we were discussing it.
And me and my brothers and some other family members were maybe hoping we could name the park after him in memory of him, I guess.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's very, yes.
Cause he's all about the dogs and racing and, well, I'm mechanicing too, but that was more of his other hobby. So I was hoping I could talk to you guys about that, or I don't know how that would work, but
Well, I think if you could send us a letter,
okay.
the Town of High Prairie letter, and ask that in our considerations for dog park, this would be an appropriate name.
Okay.
At this point, we have not said for sure we're going to be having a dog park, but as we move along that path, if we move along that path, your letter will not be lost,
Okay.
and it will come forward at such time as we get further on.
Okay.
All right? Well, I appreciate that. And if you just send a letter to the Town of High Prairie. And
Do you have the card I can use?
yes, right here. Just have them have. Thanks, Brian. I appreciate you coming.
Thank you.
I knew your dad, or grandpa. He was really good.
He was. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Hey,
you.
Bert.
All right, are there any other public delegations? No others? Could we then have our scheduled delegation, which is Fletcher, Mudrick and Company, Auditors, and I think it's Kari.
Yes, it is.
See, got the name right this time.
Appreciate that, thanks.
So welcome, appreciate you coming.
So, I did have the opportunity of meeting you once before, but I'll just briefly so that everyone, my name is Kari Speaker-Smith. I'm an auditor and partner with Fletcher, Mudrick in Grand Prairie. And we've completed the audit now for the Town of High Prairie. And so I'm just presenting in draft form your financial statements for the town. For process, in regards to financial statements, we provide the audited draft financials only until you as a council have chose to approve them. So you can do so today after the presentation, or alternatively, you do have another meeting in April that you could choose to approve formally at that meeting, just so that in order it meets the deadline for May 1st, sending to municipal affairs, which of course you are going to make that deadline in due course, so that's great. I thought I would talk a bit about the financial statements. We won't certainly go through all of these pages, but if there's certain things that I haven't addressed when I do a summary, certainly I'm open to questions, and if there's any areas you want some clarification, we can do so. Our process has been that we came in the second week of February to do the field audit work for the end of February. It was the week that we presented to you, my audit team was here. So we came during that time, and then subsequent to that, we were completing the record board and library audited financial statements as well. So once we complete the audit of the town, then we consolidate it with the recreation board, the library, and the waste authority. And the waste authority financial statements were provided by the MD of Big Lakes and their auditors who audit that portion. The draft financial information for the town is provided by your management, and then we consolidate all of those entities together to come to this financial statement. So there'll certainly be some numbers that you see are somewhat different than what you're seeing on your month-to-month statements because those are just of the town. So for instance, the recreation area, you're going to see in addition to expenditures because the recreation board has been added to those numbers to consolidate overall what the town has, as well as its 50% ownership in the rec board and library and 35% ownership in the waste authority. So in doing so, there probably are some items where you look and say, okay, well, what is the difference there? We can talk about those as we go through. As well, we'll talk about the accumulated surplus, and I have them divided up amongst the entities so that you know which entity has made what amount. The library and the rec board both had their meetings last night and both approved their financial statements. So they are public information now and they have been formally approved. And I believe the waste authority is the same. They had given permission to go ahead with disclosing their information. I believe you have draft financial statements in your package provided to you. I do have the final financial statements with me. Again, it is council's decision whether you approve today or you decide to hold off until your next meeting. And I'll leave those with Crystal as well as anything for signatures to do subsequent to the meeting. So if we turn to page 2 of the financial statements, it shows us a consolidated statement of financial position, which is basically a balance sheet for those of you that have seen corporate statements. Again, I think just to start, the town financial information that you have been receiving on a monthly basis, on the town information we only had 6 journal entries at the end of the year, from what was presented to you as monthly statements to what ended up going into these financial statements. And I think that says a lot for the quality of information that has come to us, and we didn't have to spend a lot of time in doing any accounting work over and above our auditing, so that's good. So on page 2, I will glance over the parts that I noted that there are significant changes, but if there are any questions or anyone has something they want clarified, please let me know. Overall, in receivables, you'll see that taxes and trade receivables in general have dropped from last year. One of the things that we certainly noted was the collection of those receivables have been on a more regular basis than what they've been done in the past. Part of that has also been in the fact that you've had people in those positions throughout the year, where you may have had a number of changes in the previous year that you didn't so much have in this year. Investments basically are shares that you have like in your insurance, it's Alari or AUMA, and just investments that basically stay the same from year to year. Your accounts payable, they're considerably less because you didn't have the same number of capital projects ongoing at the end of the year that you would have had the year before. You had the fire hall that was in the midst of happening, so payables are going to be high, as well as things like deferred revenue will be relatively high because you have capital grant money coming in as you're building. In 2013, you did have some more deferred revenue coming in because you had some brand new capital grants towards the end of the year that were for projects that you have done in 13 and now will be ongoing for 14. The landfill closure and post-closure liability, most of that comes over from the waste authority, but you do have a small closure, post-closure liability that's set up for landfill work that the town does as well, but primarily that derives from the waste. And long-term debt, you've taken on no new debt as a town in 2013, so it's just been strictly repayments that you've done in 2013 to bring that balance down. So overall, your net financial assets for the town have gone up about $1 million from what you had in December of the previous year. In capital assets, of course, the one big thing was finishing up the fire hall, and with the fire hall, you had some fire trucks and some equipment and some purchases that came along with that. So that was good part of the growth that was in capital. You also had some bridge projects that you'd spent a fair amount of dollars on in order of getting those. And then also during that process, you went through some of your rental and other equipment and did a bit of a cleanup, and so there were some proceeds on some equipment that wasn't being used on the town. I think that's primarily all the changes as far as, the balance sheet side. Inventory, just to let you know, are most of your supplies that you have in regards to your public works. And that stays fairly consistent from year to year, and to account on that each.
Where would the, sale of the physician's house be?
That'll be on the next page.
Okay, that's no problem.
So on
I thought
the,
it would've been under, net assets, it would show up as an asset.
Yes, it would come out of assets. I'm just thinking if it's set as inventory, but there's a different item that was sitting in inventory. I'll just back up. So, the physician's house would have came out of tangible capital assets. In inventory, one of the items that had been sitting on there was a piece of land that had been originally interpreted as being land held by the town in regards to where the hospital was going. One of the items I had noted when I was at the last meeting was that we were waiting on a letter back from the lawyers in regards to land titles for certain pieces of property. There was one piece of property that was sitting in inventory as land held for resale that was no longer the property of the town. And so the lawyer that was in charge of that, he sent me the paperwork, and you will see an adjustment that we'll go over when we get further into the financial statements of land that is not being held by the town but was sitting in inventory up to this time, and we've now gone back and adjusted it back to 11 when a number of land swaps happened. So, yes.
Is that the little acreage north of the actual hospital?
Yes,
Okay.
correct. So yes, we will touch on that when we get towards the end of the statement.
Yeah, and the new hospital is just a little chunk, it's belongs to people.
Yeah, and I think there was a series of 3 transactions that occurred. 2 had been recorded, but the 3rd had not. That's now recorded. Page 3. This statement of operations is basically your income statement. So to answer your question, Ms. Mayor, is the sale of the physician's house, those revenues on any gain or loss of disposal on an asset that's been sold is showing under other items, is what your net gain or loss would be. And there'll be another statement that'll show the full proceeds, and I'll detail that for you as well. So in revenue, under user fees and sale of goods, a good portion of the increase from the year before is certainly being, and I can tell from driving around yesterday and today, is the increase in business permits, development permits. A number of those user fees have certainly gone up. The recreation board contributes a bit to these user fees going up as well. So that has certainly been a big part of it. And then also with the start of the new hospital construction, there's been some additional user fees that you may not have had in the past. Municipal property taxes has stayed fairly consistent from year to year and very close to what you had budgeted. Your government transfers for operating would be any grants that you would get strictly for operations, not for your capital projects. And again, primarily those operating grants covered what you had budgeted for coming in, and they were applied for it. Anything that you've applied for grants, you ensured that the grant came in first, and then you undertook the work subsequent to receiving the grant. Rentals, franchise, fines, all of them are typically about what they've been in the past, same with your penalties, costs of taxes. Penalties and costs of taxes are derived from any taxes receivable that are in arrears. And certainly there are some properties that you have in arrears that you will be looking at tax sale this year unless those receivables are paid for in advance.
How many, do you know how many?
No, sorry, I don't. I seem to recall 3.
About half a dozen.
Yeah, 3 for sure. With property taxes, if some of you are not aware, there is certain, the Municipal Government Act sets out very strict rules on how anything in arrears, and for how long are taken care of. That if for a certain period of time a municipality hasn't been paid, for property taxes, then you have a process that you can take that land and put it up for resale, and then whatever the proceeds are on that sale first come to pay back the town, and the remainder would go to the former owner. Also there is a clause in the Municipal Act to obtain any extra expenses you may have had in order in incurring that, to ensure that your municipality is not out any dollars by the time the process is finished. Interest as well. Interest and investment income. So one of the things that we had discussed with council in the previous year was in regards to setting up your reserves and then ensuring that those reserves were obtaining reasonable amounts of interest. Your return on interest, which is also disclosed in the statements, is about 1.85%, which is fairly good considering the local climate of what interest you earn in general for any entity. And certainly we hope that interest rates will go up in regards to people savings and municipal savings in the near future. But that percentage is very good in comparison to other municipalities, and is average, if not a bit above average. Licenses and permits, that too ties in with the fact that we've had so much additional development in the town, and new businesses that have come into the town, or changes in businesses. Those permits have definitely supported the increase in your bottom line. The other does tie in some of those proceeds that we were talking about in regards to selling some of the some other things that have come out of the town. I think it was, yeah, that was all I wanted to cover here. Expenditures. So overall,
Just before you go, just for my clarification, there's 2013 unaudited, then the 2013. That 2013 was the budgeted amount. That was
absolutely.
Yeah,
So that first column is your budget. The second column is the actual. So a number of the differences between your budget and actual, and if you look at your December monthly statements that are provided to council, you're very close to your budget. Some of the numbers that are going to change this is what comes in from the library or the recreation board or the waste authority, if they have or have not budgeted for certain revenue or expenditure items. So in overall, the budget that you set for 2013 compared to your actual, especially on the expenditure side, came very close in almost every department. But some of the swings that you're going to see are the addition of what's come from these other entities and being added to your statements.
So are only the expenditures added to the statements, or does the budget amount of the other entity get added also?
The budget amount does. It's just you may have, for instance, in the library's case, if they netted a revenue again, like they just showed a budget line item of this is how much net we want to make, their budget is going to be just an expenditure line, and it won't show a split between revenue and expenditure. So there's not a huge skewing, but there can be a little bit. Expenditures, and it would certainly only relate to recreation, your culture, recreation and culture, and then your wastewater treatment and waste disposal. It should be only those departments. Under expenditures, overall, council has stayed well under the budget that was set for it. Overall, there is a slight increase. The majority of this increase that's showing in council is partly to do with two of the entities that you had given tax relief to, and part of that is just because the Department of Council and other legislative encompasses any of those changes you may or may not have made in property taxes. And so when you've given this portion of, it's like a grant given to those entities, that grant is showing as an expenditure in council. But it is not truly a council expenditure as in the council that is here, but it is part of your legislative department. So the increase is really primarily from those, I believe that was about $34,000, that tax relief that was provided in 2013.
I'm confused. Herb, can you help us?
What are you
confused about.
Where did the 34,000 tax relief go to? What
Oh,
entities?
seed cleaning plant and ADSS, those are the
So
tax.
previous councils didn't approve those tax reliefs?
No, they did.
So why is the increase, why is there an increase there?
It's been consistently waived for the last 6 years.
Well, the increase there is because in 2011 council didn't, or 2012, council didn't approve the seed cleaning plant. And in 13,
Really?
I think it was 2 years in one, if I recall it correctly.
Why was that not ever brought to the table? Like, why is this, sorry. This is news.
We'll talk about it tomorrow night, I guess.
Well, council has the opportunity to approve or not approve these grants, we know that. In 2012, they decided it wasn't gonna happen, for the seed cleaning.
And this isn't a $30,000 increase, this is a $60,000 increase.
And only 34 has to do with the grants and the tax relief.
So under the $30,000 is previous to council expense? Like, why is this number so high?
Yeah, travel, council meeting attendance is higher than budget. Probably about 10, meeting attendance, 10 to 20, 10 to 15.
And this is your January to December
December,
tax
yes.
rate.
Look at 12 versus 13. I mean, the budget.
Okay, okay. Is it okay to proceed? That would be administrative expenses stayed almost identical to what you had in 2012. One of the things I will mention is in your monthly financial statements, you had some allocation of your administrative costs to other departments. The only reason we have not reflected that in these financial statements is the comparatives from the year before. We're not applying them to the different departments, but we will do so, or we will recommend you do so in 2014 to keep those comparatives reasonable. So there's about $100,000 of administrative expenses in your monthlies that have been allocated to other departments that are not reflected as an allocation in this financial statement. So in comparison to budget, you're right on where your budget is for administration.
So what you're telling us is that partway through the year or in 2013, the definition of something was changed and said, oh, it really shouldn't be in administration, it should be somewhere else.
What happened prior to 13, interdepartmental charges, internal charges were never supposed to happen between one department and another. Generally you said, if this is my public works department, these are the costs of my public works. You might have someone you share in different departments, well, you can say, yeah, they have work for that department. But interdepartmental charges, according to municipal affairs, were to always be reversed. They just wanted true expense. What expense did you put through advertising? What expense did you put through council? Don't take it and piecemeal it to other. As of 13, they've authorized that you can go ahead with those interdepartmental charges. In a municipality of your size, that makes sense for a number of things, which salaries have been done, because it's very easy to say this person works for that department 30% of the time, 40% here, 10%. But when it comes to overall running of the municipality, there's a lot of things that it's difficult to separate, and it could be at the decision of one person versus another. I think as long as it's done, if it's done, it needs to be done consistently. So whatever the decision is made in 13 should be the same system that would happen in 14, 15 and ongoing. Mostly for those staff that you have that are accountable to their budget. They wanna make sure that there's not all of a sudden a number plumped on the end that they weren't part of the budgeting process for, and so that they had a plan right from the start. And certainly that's what's happened in your monthly management from month to month. What I see is that's been proposed from management throughout 13 every single month. If there's a division of allocation, it's clearly a line that you receive in your monthly package saying allocation of admin expenses or allocation. It's a separate line item in the information being provided. So that's very good, and it will provide very good comparatives for next year if you choose as a council to continue doing that.
I kind of understand what you're saying. We discuss budget tomorrow. We'll, like that kind of discussion, once I have the figures in front of me, I should be able to see it more clearly.
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely, yeah. Fire, disaster services, and bylaw enforcement, of course, that comes with the new, fire hall, and yet overall, you remained under budget. And it was partly just, equipping the new fire hall and all the general operations for the new fire hall. Common services, roads, streets, walks and lighting, as well as your water, wastewater supply, all of those things should be looked at in conjunction with each other, because again, there's certain things that Public Works may relate to that works in water and wastewater, and overall, again, you have remained under budget as to what you had set for those things. And then certainly under recreation and culture, we've added the expenditures that have come from the rec board and as well from the library. Gas distribution is higher than budgeted, but then your revenue also went up. That was actually that's the largest part of your user fee increase. So yes, you had an increase in revenue from gas distribution, but your cost also went up. Overall, the margin you're making on your gas distribution is the same as what the margin was the year before.
What margin is that?
It would be 1.8 to 1.5, so it's about 15% margin. Sorry, we should have a calculator. Yeah, it would be.
We'll be discussing
It would,
that.
yeah, it would be about 300,000 over and above the 1.5 million that you're paying. 20%. Yeah. Under other items, you had 2 donations this year. One was a Ford pickup truck to the fire department was made. And then the other donation, I believe the other donations had to do as well with the fire hall. They were donations that flowed through from a group that was raising money for the community, and it funneled it through into the town and then paid out to buy some equipment. So that's where that donation money is coming from.
Do you want questions through your presentation or at the end?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's probably through
Okay.
because there's probably points in time where you wanna.
You had mentioned that
relevant.
our budget was in line as it was going along. It was in line with what was expected. I look at revenues, it only was like a 20% increase. And I look at expenditures as like a 9 or 10% increase. So if it was in line in December, how come there's a 20% difference?
Part of that is gonna be from, like, for instance, the waste authority. If you don't have a
So you
budgeted
get
line
transfers at the
item.
end of the year?
Yeah,
Or-
well,
or on a
consolidation,
6 cents, yeah.
consolidation, if you don't have a budgeted line item on the waste financial statements, but you've got an actual, all of a sudden your actual's gone up by how much has been spent in waste, but budget hasn't changed at all.
Okay.
So, definitely what you're provided on a monthly basis, when I look at that and see what you're comparing from expenses to budget, things are very much in line, and that detailed information you're getting is accurate to what's going into here. Like I said, there were only 6 journal entries at the end of the year, and none of them were significant entries that would change your bottom line by more than $25,000 to $30,000.
A few more if I can.
Yeah.
Something came to light for us in March of 2014, an asset that we weren't aware of, that wouldn't be added back in until it came to light to us, correct? Like a $1 million asset?
Absolutely. So unless, well, there's 2 things. If there's an asset that's come forward before the financial statements are dated, and it's a significant subsequent event that changes how someone would read this financial statement, it needs to be disclosed. It wouldn't be added as an asset till it was physically taken on as an asset, but it does need to be disclosed if it's, if the reader is not getting a reasonable overview of the town by it being absent. example would be if a building burnt down in March of 14, you'd need to note a subsequent event that that building was no longer with the town, even though at December 31st it still existed.
So if we became aware of $1.5 million asset in March, we should make you aware, or just so it's noted? Okay, we did, as far as we know.
So land titles?
I don't know if we
Just-
pull land title, I would say so.
Until we pull title, we don't know.
But it actually, it's rented out by us,
But who's got the title?
because it's rented out.
Do we own the title? How do you pull the title?
See, and that's the surprise we had and management brought to light on that other property, was going through the land titles and seeing that a particular piece of property was not on the town's land title. So then we went to the lawyers and said, okay, pull us all the documentation as to why this particular property, cause sometimes land title may say one thing, but then there's a legal agreement saying, well, it's being held by a certain party in abeyance for another party at a future time. And it often happens, for instance, when a hospital's being built or
And to be honest, it might be an asset that we already claim, I don't know. It's just certain parts of it we weren't claiming because we didn't think it was ours.
Right.
And then according to the contract I dropped off in March, it appears everything's ours.
Yeah, and I guess my only caution would be saying, not only land titles, but then to see if there's any type of provincial agreement, if it has a government relationship, because we have had particular properties.
Communicated it too, right?
Absolutely. We've had properties at other municipalities where the title will show for that municipality, but they truly don't own it. The ownership is the province of Alberta, and there's a particular reason for that. And some of it sometimes comes, like for instance, a waste authority will often happen. The waste authority does not want full title necessarily of the land, because then the environmental issues remain with the province. So, yeah, it's best to get clarity and then ensure that there's legal representation to support. One other thing to mention is that you do budget for amortization, and a big part of that budgeting for amortization, when I looked at your 10-year capital plan, your $1.8 million that is currently in amortization does follow along what your 10-year capital plan is. So I think in your municipality, it's very effective budgeting that amortization, because it's following along with what you've budgeted for your capital plan. Not every municipality are those two things equal or relatively equal. But what happens then is you set a budget so that you have funds that you're building up to continue to put into those reserves and make sure that your reserve's funded. Any other questions on the statement of operations?
Just a quick question.
Yeah.
The restricted funds, in the past, there could be you could have restricted fund and you have no money in it.
Correct.
How is the town doing with respect to restricted funds and cash?
Absolutely. If I could have everyone turn to page 17. It summarizes the accumulated surplus of the town, which that total does match the page you were just on, but it breaks down what you as a council have agreed as restricted surplus, unrestricted surplus, and what you've invested in your capital assets in the town. In 2012, there was a restricted surplus of $1